Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Ferndale City Council meeting to order for Monday, August 13, 2012. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Galloway?
Here.
Martin?
Here.
Piana? Here. Lennon?
Here.
Mayor Coulter?
Here, thank you. We have a quorum. In fact, we have a full house. Our next item of business would be the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, changes to the agenda this evening?
Move that we accept the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Piana. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Councilmembers Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana? Yes. Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The agenda is approved. We have two presentations this evening. Our first presentation is by the Chamber of Commerce to report on the Rainbow Run and to do something we always love, donate proceeds from the Rainbow Run. I'm looking to see who is representing the Chamber. Oh, there's Jennifer right in front of me. I'm looking around. Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer Rosenberg from the Chamber. How are you?
Good. How are you? So, good evening, everyone. I wanted to just take a few moments to quickly recap the Rainbow Run. It did take place nearly 2 months ago, though we finally had a chance to sort through all the bills and everything like that to get a full understanding of how successful it was and what we're going to be able to present to our three charity partners here tonight. Just to have a recap, the Rainbow Run was a new fundraising event for the Chamber this year that took place the morning of Ferndale Pride. We asked our runners to come out and show their support for acceptance and diversity. And as such, we wanted to make this more than just a fundraiser for the Chamber, but also to give back to some organizations who devote their time to promote diversity, acceptance, and anti-bullying. We selected three charity partners who do just that, either directly or indirectly. The three partners are Affirmations, the Ferndale Community Foundation, and Upstander, which is a program through the Friendship Circle that teaches an amazing anti-bullying program at local high schools. And we're actually hoping we can get them here into Ferndale. And so we're trying to work with the schools on that. And the money that we raised for that would be designated to the Ferndale program as long as we're able to work something out with the Ferndale schools. As you know, the Rainbow Run was a tremendous success. In its first year, we had amazing support from many great sponsors, which included Comerica Bank, Garden Fresh Gourmet, Gage Products Company, Tangerine Road, Dino's Lounge, Painting with a Twist, and author Stephanie Hecht. We sold out of our spots for the running, and had 500 runners. We probably could have easily hit the 600 mark or more, but we actually had to cut it off so that we made sure we had enough powdered paint for everyone. And finally, we had unbelievable community support. And after hitting nearly 100 volunteers, we actually had to cut off the volunteers. So it's always hard to turn volunteers away, but we didn't have enough. In addition to the amazing community support, we also had wonderful support from the City of Ferndale itself. So I quickly wanted to thank you, Council, City Manager Lynch, and all the department heads for their assistance and constant communication. We weren't quite sure how the city would respond when we told them we wanted to throw paint at people along the city streets. But not only did you say, it sounds like fun, we got amazing direction from folks like Michael Larry. Traffic Control Officer Simpson diligently worked to field enough auxiliary and uniformed officers for the Rolling Street closure. Fire Marshal Batten made sure we kept things safe, and DPW provided everything we needed for cleanup and the road closure. It was truly a team effort, and I commend the city for how well each department worked together to pull off this event and many of the other events that take place in Ferndale. So with that, we're excited to announce that through this event, we were able to raise a total of $3,120 for our three charity partners. So at this time, we're honored to present each of them a check for $1,040 so they can continue to make a difference in our region each day. So I'd like to welcome up with me Kathleen Sullivan from Upstander, Greg Pollica from the Ferndale Community Foundation, and David Garcia from Affirmations so that I can present their checks. Joining me also from the Chamber are our Chairman and Vice Chairman, Jay McMillan and Carol Jackson. Thank you.
I'd also like to say that if it wasn't for Jennifer and Katie and Andrea at the Chamber office, this never would have gotten done. They did a fabulous job. Thank you.
And you had the weather on your side, because right after the race, the rain washed all of the pain away, so.
That didn't work well for Ferndale Pride.
Well, but then it stopped, right? Right?
Upstander?
Kathleen?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Do you guys mind if I get a quick?
Sure. Where do you want us?
We're trying to do this fast.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you, and Jennifer, thanks for all your hard work and creativity. What a creative, fun idea. Thanks for bringing it forward to the community. Our next presentation this evening is the website redesign update, site map, and moving forward. Is that a Joe thing this evening?
It is a Joe thing this
right.
evening. One moment while I... Okay, good evening, Council. The objective of tonight's slideshow presentation is to give you an update on the city's website process, where we are in the redevelopment, how we got there, and where we're going moving forward.
Maybe.
There it is. Okay, the phases of the project have been outlined by the consultant and staff, the consultant being Artemis Technologies. I'd like to outline a few of those phases. Here we go. Okay, the information architecture, which will be the next phase moving forward. During this phase, we will design all the intricate details of each page, plan the content layout, and integrate all the module functionality into the appropriate pages. Modules being inserting event calendars, surveys, news feeds, event feeds, things of this nature into the appropriate spots throughout the website. Then we would integrate the graphic design. The city and Skidmore have received 250 responses to the surveys that we submitted over the past 5 weeks to several different stakeholder groups, so we could solicit for public input on the graphic design phase of the project. We hope to finalize the graphic portion of this project in October. The content management system, the special features and the training will involve migrating the content from the old site to the new site, developing new content, and inserting all the modular components, the calendars and such, in the correct spaces. Then we will be testing those modules to make sure that they work effectively. Once effective and once all the content is established, we will train staff on how to develop their own content, edit content, and go live on content. This is something pretty exciting that we're looking at developing. Artemis and staff are looking at developing a beta launch period, so we can actually have a period where we haven't fully actively launched, but the public can actually click over into the beta site, see what it looks like, move around and toy with the new website, and determine what information they think might be missing, what they think is useful, what they think is useless, so we can better design the site for perfection upon active launch. And right now, we are in the phase of developing the site map. And I'm going to move to the next slide to discuss that. And, whoops, digital ribbon cutting for the active launch would be the final.
Time frame for that, or you don't want to hazard a guess?
We're working on developing the digital ribbon cutter.
He's saying what time? Do you know how long that will
Time
take?
frame for that, or you don't want to hazard a guess?
Still looking like the new year. Okay, the site map features, sorry if you can't read that, the plan of the blueprint for the site. It provides a skeleton for the information and the content moving forward. The structure of the navigation determines what the primary navigation is in the global navigation. The primary navigation are the tabs that you would see on a normal website that direct your audience members where to go. It documents functionality. As I said, it tells us where to put the modules and what spaces. And it guides the design and development. The skeleton ultimately will be integrated into the graphic design, so it will inform the graphic design as well. The first phase of the project was to audit our current site. As you can see, the items on the right are some of the issues that we have found. The central problem is that staff hasn't really had the capacity to directly manage the city's current website. Because of that, you do see outdated content, the broken links, some duplicitous content, complicated architecture where the site user often gets lost. After auditing the current site, we discussed what the website is and what it isn't. The website is not done for myself or for any single individual. It's not done for Artemis, the designer. It is not going to be done for senior management department heads or specific departments. It's not even done for council itself, for boards and commissions.
Wait a minute.
The website is designed for target audiences. Some of those target audiences have been identified on the right. There are several more. During our audit of the current site map, we can see that there wasn't always a clear pathway to get from point A to point B for the user. It would often get lost and shuffled. Information is mixed within different audiences. So one audience looking for a service might be shuffled into government as well. To combat this, Artemis and staff have agreed to employ an audience-centric design site map and information architecture. This is a quote from Jacob Nielsen, who's an authority of user advocacy and website principles. He's the founder of the Nielsen Norman Group. And the quote says, "If a website is difficult to use, people leave. If the homepage fails to clearly state what a company offers and what users can do in the site, the people will leave. If users get lost on the website, they'll leave. If the information is hard to read or doesn't answer users' key question, they will leave." So that leads us to identifying our target audiences. We listed the goals we would like to achieve. We'd like to identify the targets. We would like to facilitate excellent and efficient customer service, create the online service options. So we'd like to move a lot of our options online. We are exploring those options. Some of them seem feasible. Some of them might be a little bit more difficult. But we are asking Artemis to develop proposals and quotes. We would like simple and logical navigation that's intuitive for the user, and useful, dynamic, interesting content. To do this, to identify some of these user and service-based initiatives, we brainstormed about what the most common questions are about services that staff receive by phone, in person, or through the current website, at public meetings or on social media. What do people want to know? We identified the audiences and the connections to these services and questions. Then we inserted them into the sitemap blueprint. And finally, at the bottom, you'll notice to stick to it. This means we must remain diligent about constantly updating our content and remaining loyal to the audience structure. This way, we hope to ensure that 2-3 years down the line from now, we're not redeveloping the entire structure again. You might be looking at a graphic design at most, but we should have content that is relevant and that is useful. The audience-centric design has 4 general principles. It should be appealing. The graphic design has been informed by the 250 citizen surveys, so the citizen participation has been very involved. The consistency, it should house content and information under the audience-centric site structure. On message, the information should remain on point and about the audience itself. And engaging. We should avoid polluting the site with information that is not wanted or unused. We will use analytics to assist us in this matter. Here's an example of one of the site maps we've modeled ourselves after. It's the city of Palo Alto, California. The city was an excellent reference for audience-centric site maps. They launched a beta website as well. It was public for 1 month before they committed to the official launch. The top 3 reasons that we really looked at Palo Alto, most notably they had a feature called My Palo Alto. We are looking to see if we can develop this with Artemis, and this feature allows a user to create a login to the website and determine what's relevant to them. They can log in and receive whatever news and events alerts that they want to receive. They can pick and choose what information from the website that's relevant to them. So when they log in, it's all right there. So in a sense, the user is developing their own version of the site that suits their needs. Number 2, the site map and information is clearly laid out. There's not a lot of content pollution on the front page. It was driven by analytics, and you can tell that people wanted news and events and quick links. With a clear sitemap and primary navigation, the website should be easy for the user to navigate. Their drop-down menus are very clear and to the point, most notably in their I Want To section. That serves as a quick FAQ and a quick resource directory. Third, online services. Their online permit tracking and submittal process. They have online business license registration, which is exportable to Excel spreadsheets. Their social media integration is impressive, and they have open data initiatives, which is kind of a new initiative for digital government. Ferndale's primary navigation moving forward in the information architecture will be services, government, doing business, special events, community partners, and a how do I. The services tab is an initial build. Whoops, sorry about that. Never mind, disregard that. The relevant information is located under each of these service areas. For instance, the services, under services, you'll have consolidated service areas like housing, voting, recreation, utilities, things of that nature. And most services we provide will be consolidated under those service areas.
Joe, I have a quick question. Will the police and court websites be considered in the beta launch, or because we're consolidating those sites too into the big one, right? In the city mothership?
Yes, the Ferndale Police Department will be part of the beta launch.
Okay.
Not the district court, though. They're
Okay.
So the relevant information is located under each service area, and we will have call-outs to the appropriate departments as a reference point. This is very important to the audience-centric theory, because most site visitors are concerned with obtaining the information about the actual services. Mostly, they're not concerned about where those services are housed or who actually provides them. They just want to know about the service itself. But we will have call-outs for the departments, so people do know intuitively, if you want more information about voting, click, you'll go to the clerk.
And just to clarify, there will be links to the court, but the court's not adjusting their website. Just wanted to clarify.
Here's a great example also from City of Palo Alto. You look at this. This is their utilities page. They've clearly identified their audiences. They have their customer service. They have their residential. They have their business and the associated information with the associate audience. They also do have call-outs, if you were to click further into that, to what departments respond to those services and utilities. And finally, part of the audience structure is considered the user technology and how it's changed. You look at web browsers, our current site is not compatible truly with Google Chrome, for instance, and Safari. It was built with a Internet Explorer, Mozilla-dominated framework. So we are looking to adapt to current browsers. Smartphone and tablets, most people can access that using iPhone and iPad now, and different variations. So you need to design it with reactive design. This means that when people are looking at it on their tablet and they move it into a horizontal, the page will move in a correct manner and read correctly. So we're looking at that. And finally, apps. Our consultant, Artemis, does have the capability of developing apps. We will take the opportunity during the beta launch to ask the site users what apps would be helpful or what they would like to see the city of Ferndale produce, if anything. Then we will determine the feasibility of it to implement. Several tech-savvy cities have put on hackathons, which is where they would challenge the local developer and university community to develop those apps. So if we do receive public input, that could be something that we could engage in and see if they would develop that for public information and public use. And moving forward, continuing the process, you will see a different website. It is not going to be a department-centric website where all your services and information is housed in a governmental departmental structure. This is a trend in local government website management. We've looked to the most technically advanced cities, and that's where they're all going as well. Some research model examples were Palo Alto, California, obviously. Their sitemap, their modules, and open data efforts were noted. Charlottesville, Virginia provided a great mapping module, a great interactive map for the public interface. Seattle, Washington had audience-defined primary navigation. Boston, too, had a great navigation system. And Philadelphia had a Text-as-in pilot program where citizens might be able to text into the website and receive immediate feedback. They've used it for polls, surveys. And that might be something we could explore as well. And Chicago was very large in the open data efforts. The research that we've used, the research sources were from the Strategic Government Resource Group, GovTech Today, Digital Communities, and the Mashable website. Questions? And thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there questions of council?
General comments.
Please.
I'm really excited that at the end of all of the launch that we're moving towards the next phase, which is open government. It's something I think we need to get on the bandwagon with. Most cities don't have an open government policy, which is making data available so that the entrepreneurs can make apps. So any way that we can connect to Code for America, which I'm sure you know about.
Very aware, yeah.
So I love what you're doing. Awesome.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thanks.
I hope I didn't bore you.
Work, Joe.
Not
Yeah.
at least.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hardest part is yet to begin.
That's right. All right, the next item of business then would be the call to audience. Call to audience is 30 minutes now and more time at the end of the meeting if needed. 3 minutes to talk about anything that you like that's not on the agenda, because you'll get an opportunity to talk about that when it comes up on the agenda. Give us your name and your address, or put your address on the back sheet for the city clerk to note.
Sherry A. Wells, 315 West Troy. The Green Cruise is over. It was on Saturday, as Councilwoman Piana and Councilmember Galloway both know because they were there. I'm pleased that they were, and the many other people who realized the weather was not going to be that bad and had a good time on the rides. We also enjoyed having many more children and families in the parade with all kinds of human-powered and kid-powered vehicles. The parades have been videotaped by Crystal Proxmire, Ferndale 115, and Keith Dalton, so those people who weren't able to be there, a few of you, then can see what you missed. What I want to particularly thank tonight are the people involved with the city that helped us. My first experience with the special events was this great big long form when I was pulling off the 80th birthday party for Ferndale on behalf of the Historical Society in 2007. What I found this time is the form is much simplified, and I understand more simplified than what you had it before. Michael Larry was very clear and thorough and patient. The DPW had half of the stuff done by the time I was able to contact them and told me what else I needed to do. And I had a suspicion that they knew more about what was going on than I was going to know, because we had a committee of 4 that was able to keep this thing going. The police, I called them up. I said, this is Sherry Wells calling about the Green Cruise, and they said, we are ready to lead your parade. I found out from the DPW that the police had called them and said, I think we need a few more barricades on 2 more spots. Can you bring them over? And that was done without us being involved at all. The fire department was very good at explaining to me clearly what their needs were so that we could follow them. I sent the press release to the DDA, and Chris Hughes blasted it out to all of her publicity sources. What we have is a special events team in this city. In fact, one of our committee is from another city, and I said, well, I think the DPW knows more what we're doing than we do, and he was very skeptical, and I was able to say, I told you so. So in the future, the four of us are putting together a manual of all the things that need to be done so it goes smoother and bigger next year, and would expect every one of you to be able to be there, because you know it's going to be the second Saturday in August of 2013.
And you're close to your 3 minutes, Chair.
2 more words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thanks very much.
Okay, good evening. My name is Stella.
Good evening.
Okay, I came to share information with parents of Ferndale. I'm very unhappy with Ferndale Public School, with way how they treat kids and parents who wants they put time to make the kids to succeed. Instead of this, we meet as sabotage. And children who score high seems to be left behind in Ferndale Public School. As example, my kid was qualified for special test for math test advanced level. In the order of this, we went in contact with school coordinator Susan Klippert. We also, teacher of my child who qualified her for this, he contacted with her in order what level of information has to be child prepared to pass this advanced level. They made this a big secret. They told you'll find on a test. Okay, it's the end of the 5th grade. I prepare my kids for the 5th grade. Even they sabotage the date. They change 3 times date of the test. And finally, the test was scored for Friday morning. They sent me a letter. Let your child rest. Good nice evening. They had a test Thursday late afternoon when kids were well out. Even this, she still scored after 5th grade, end of the 5th grade, 53% of the 7th grade Iowa test I'm talking about. But she's not only one. We had other kids who scored 70%, but not high enough to like only 2 kids from this school score. But we still have only 10, 12 kids from Coolidge, a middle school, who has ability still way above the class rate. Not only in the math. I'm talking about reading in the beginning of 5th grade on the 8th grade independent. School seems sabotage them. They pull them behind. It seems teachers are not informed. It seems it's impossible to get straight information from school. Very small selected group. We have kids coming from all the way around, and these kids, a lot of time, even not reaching preferential level. As parents don't care, they look at the Ferndale school as a free day care. In order, we help in these schools, but we don't take our own children. I know hundreds, children from school, from Ferndale. I work in a health food store, people contact. I see kids around. None of these kids going to Ferndale school. Parents, they pay high taxes on the school, one of the highest in Oakland County, and they have to waste money to drive the kids way far away. Why can't
your 3 minutes?
why can't we just get a special program for our own advanced kids? And in order of this, will say, it needs to be 7th grade math, 7th grade advanced math, or algebra 1. Prepare your kids, parents. Be sure you hear me this information. 7th grade math, 7th grade advanced math, or algebra 1. At least your kids will have a chance of accelerating the school.
Thank you for your comments. And I encourage you also to visit the school board who
it's useless. It's useless. And I put my kid in a danger now. I suspect they'll stuck here in the lowest score. And the teacher will be only focused on how not to get this kid worse. Instead of help her to get better.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Helena with the Ferndale Environmental Sustainability Commission. This is my colleague, Evan. We just wanted to stop by and talk about a green tip for you all today. And this being one of the hottest and driest summers on record, if not the hottest and driest, today's green tip topic is about water conservation. Because we've heard that some residents have been having concerns with their water bills being higher with the drier weather and having to use more water to take care of their landscaping and whatnot. So I'm going to tell you just a few quick facts about water usage that people may not realize. For example, taking a shower uses about 2 gallons of water per minute, and that is with a low-flow shower head. So when people advise you to take shorter showers, even 1 minute can really make a difference. Typical hand or face washing uses 1 gallon of water if you leave the faucet running while you're doing so. And outdoor watering uses 5 to 10 gallons of water per minute out of your garden hose. Now Evan is going to tell you guys some ways that you can save water and decrease your water bills.
Check your toilet for leaks. That's the easy way to do this. First, to clean the toilet, then put some food coloring dye tabs in the tank of the toilet. Let it sit for about 15 minutes and look in the toilet bowl. If there's any dye in the bowl, you have an obvious leak. Check the kitchen faucets for other leaks and bathroom sink faucets. Drips once every 3 seconds waste about 86 gallons per month of water. Install a low-flow faucet aerator. Water in the morning or after dark to minimize evaporation, and adjust sprinklers to only water the lawn and not buildings or sidewalks or streets, as that happens quite frequently. Raise your lawnmower blades to the highest setting, especially during dry weather. Closely cutting grass makes roots work harder, requiring more water. Purchase or make a rain barrel and use the captured water to water your flowers and gardens. Ensure your hot water heater is insulated and you won't have to run the faucet as long to get hot water. This could also decrease other utility bills. Water heating is the second largest energy use in homes, behind space, heating, and cooling. It accounts for 16.8% of residential energy consumption and can cost a household anywhere from $200 to $600 a year. And gas is a dominant water heating fuel for the Midwest, typically speaking. You can buy a water heater insulation blanket for about $20 to $30, depending on the size of the hot water tank at your local hardware store, Home Depot.
Thank you, Evan. We have other tips for you, but we're not going to take up any more of your time. But if you do go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/FESC48220, I posted all of our advice on there. And thank you for your time.
Excellent. Thanks you guys, as always. Appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening. Steve Cook, University Street. Just wanted to bring to the council's awareness the problem that we're finding, an increased problem with rats in our area where we're living. We actually live right behind Tim Hortons. We have Subway there as well. And we've realized that there's a problem with the businesses as well, not shutting trash cans, things like that, cleaning up. And it's becoming more and more of a problem. We've had an increased problem in the last 3 years where we've experienced rats in a crawl space at the back of our house. So we've actually gone to a number of different lengths to try and eradicate that problem. We built a rat wall on the outside of that. We actually gutted the crawl space, cleaned everything out, right to the boards, and that's certainly helped with that. And we've replaced our trash cans with metal ones. We've stopped feeding birds. We pick up after our dogs regularly. We make sure that there's no brush, wood piles, stuff like that. We've actually called the health department on the businesses, and another thing that we've had to make sure we keep our outside grill and barbecue clean, because they do get in there as well. We basically would like to see businesses being held more accountable with their dumpsters and making sure they have locks on them and that they're down at all times. We have some nice color photos if anybody wants to see the trash that we've taken photos of. Information sent out to businesses, but also to residences. We know that there is a sheet with information on that we did get from upstairs, but there are also a number of things that are left off of here that should be added. And also whether the city can help. I know there's been a lot of stuff going on with cities in the surrounding areas, doing stuff, Sterling Heights, Warren. There's been a lot of stuff on the news lately about them purchasing pet-safe traps that people can use. We have dogs, and so we're not wanting to use snap traps in our yard. We don't want to poison. So things that the city could do to maybe help residents is take care of this problem. Okay.
Mr. Cook, I appreciate you coming. Derek Delacourt, I don't know if you've ever met him. Raise your hand, Derek, is our Director of Community and Economic Development who oversees code enforcement. So I'd appreciate you giving those pictures to him just so he's aware of it.
For sure.
I was going to maybe ask him to come up and give some of the tips, but I think you covered them pretty well for our citizens. I'll ask him at the end of the meeting if he has any more, but I appreciate you coming forward, and if you'd give him that information, he can make sure we can keep an eye on that particular area.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Cook. Appreciate it. Anyone else who would like to address council this evening? Mr. Dream Cruise.
Don't y'all look dapper. Hello, Michael Larry, Event Director for the City of Ferndale and for the Ferndale Woodward Dream Cruise, and now our 18th annual event. Just wanted to update everybody that starting Thursday is the big weekend, and that will once again feature live entertainment with the rock and roll sounds. We will have two new activities, one Restoration Academy, where we'll actually have retired engineers and young men and women who will actually build a classic car on site on West 9 Mile. We'll also have Cars and Arts, which will feature a Transit Connect cargo van where we'll have artists actually designing and creating murals on the side of the car in action, so it'll be something that the public can watch and appreciate and see the final art that is completed by Saturday. Of course, we'll also have our major sponsor, Ford Motor Company, here and having their big displays. We will have the Ferndale Emergency Vehicle Show on Friday from noon to 8 o'clock. On Friday, also at 5 p.m., we will have our official ribbon cutting ceremony where the mayor himself will be the master of ceremony, and we're very happy to finally get the official listing of those people who will be there, and you can see all that on the FerndaleDreamCruise.com website. One of our special guests will be Vaughn Gittin, who is a 2010's Formula Drift Championship winner and an icon in the drifting field of race car driving. And then, of course, on Saturday we have Shirley Muldowney, which is the first female car racer, who will be here from noon to 5 to sign autographs, which we're very excited about that. And, of course, Mustang Alley being our biggest feature on Saturday, and the Classics and Cruisin' Legends Vehicle Show. Once again, for more information, times, and where everything is located, please go to FerndaleDreamCruise.com.
Where's Shirley Muldowney going to be? What is she doing with us?
She's going to be here to say hello and sign autographs. And on West 9 Mile, pretty much around Buffalo Wild Wings and Rosie O'Grady's.
Great.
So,
look forward to that.
Thanks a lot.
You're a legend. Thanks, Michael, and thanks for all your hard work. It's about to pay off again for the 18th year in a row. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address council this evening? All right, if not, I'll close call to audience and we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda are items that we consider routine and we pass in one motion unless someone on council would like to remove something from the consent agenda. Let me read it now. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held July 23rd, 2012, and the special meeting held July 24th, 2012. B is approval to adopt the investment policy and add the policy to the city's financial policy manual as submitted by our assistant city manager. C, approval to allocate funding necessary for up to $5,000 to reimburse employees who complete at least 10 of the 12 Weight Watchers sessions as submitted by our human resources generalist. D, approval to pay the Michigan Municipal League dues totaling $7,699 for fiscal year 2012/13. E, approval of the special event permit for the Electronic Dance Music Ferndale event on September 15th and 29th, October 13th and 27th, November 10th and 21st, 2012, for a temporary outside patio on the alleyway behind the Grasshopper Pub, between East 9 Mile Road and East Troy Street. F, approval of striping the north side of Vester, east of Woodward, for 11 parallel parking spaces, and direction for the DPW department to implement the striping. G, approval of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the city manager's office, subject to the review of the council's finance committee.
Your Honor, I'd like to remove item B as in benefits.
B as in benefits will move to the regular agenda. Any other items to be removed this evening?
Item E, the special events.
Item E will move to the regular agenda as well. So Michael Leary, don't go anywhere. A motion would be in order.
I would move that we adopt the consent agenda in its entirety with the exception of items B and E.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Galloway, supported by Piana. Any discussion on the remaining items? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please? Oops, Madam Clerk took off. Where did Madam Clerk go? Wow. That's a first. I asked the Madam Clerk to call the roll and look down, only to find out she wasn't there. We'll give her a minute. That's okay. Madam Clerk, we're calling the roll on the consent agenda.
And who seconded that?
It was moved by Galloway and supported by Piana.
Thank you. And we're removing B and E?
We are removing items B and E, correct.
All right. Council members Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The remainder of the consent agenda is adopted. Now, moving on to the regular agenda, item A is consideration of the sale of a piece of property at 320 Livernois. Derek Delacourt, I believe that you are going to introduce this item.
Good evening, Council Mayor. I have to admit I'm happy, a little surprised to be here this quickly, but happy with the outcome, or at least where we stand right now. Council's aware, recently we partnered with the county or worked with the county to purchase 320 Livernois, a mixed-use zone property just north of 8 Mile on the east side of Livernois. The intent of council was to work with a potential purchaser to help facilitate the redevelopment of that property, to use it potentially as a catalyst for redevelopment along the corridor in conformance with council's goals and objectives for the Livernois corridor. Shortly after, at a meeting, directing staff to go ahead and sign that, work with the mayor to sign that purchase agreement and the county to purchase it, we were approached by a purchaser almost immediately after, interested in the property, and submitted a letter to the city requesting to purchase the property for what the city had purchased it for and any additional environmental costs we had put into it. In that letter's in your packet. Mr. Johnston, I think everybody's familiar with. He and his family own several businesses in the community. And I think after seeing council and hearing the discussion, saw it as an opportunity for them and he to expand what it is they do in the city. The letter you have in front of you indicates that Mr. Johnston would like to use the property for both a manufacturing and gallery. He does large artwork pieces and display. Currently they have a workshop on 8 Mile, and I think they'd like to move that facility or expand that facility to Livernois with the purchase of this property. In discussions with council and after reading the letter, the offer appeared to be exactly in line with what council had indicated its desires for the property were. So after discussing it with the city attorney, we put together a summary of where we're at with the property, which is we're currently finalizing the purchase from the county. We have completed our environmental investigation. Our environmental consultant has indicated that the property, after doing a phase 2, is not a facility, does not require the city to go forward with a baseline environmental assessment, and has recommended no additional environmental be done. So in addition to getting the offer, the environmental costs were considerably lower than the not to exceed $15,000 amount we discussed. The final purchase price from the county was $66,611.01, if I remember correctly. Environmental cost, $66,611.01. The environmental costs for the phase 1 were $2,200, and the phase 2 was approximately $6,000. The environmental work done by our consultant covers liability for both the city and the potential purchaser if we were to go forward. So with that, what we suggested as staff, and ultimately as council's decision, is to sell the property for what it cost us to purchase from the county, and then split the environmental costs with the purchaser if council decides to go forward. So it would be a grand total of about $70,711.01 would be what staff is recommending selling the property for at this point. So that is where we are in the process as far as purchase and the offer to purchase it from us. And Mr. Johnson and I are here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Thank you very much. Questions of council? No questions this evening.
Well, if there's no questions, I'll just quickly say that.
Tell us your plans.
Well, I mean, I've been a Ferndale resident for 13 and a half, going on 14 years, a business owner here for 15. And
in case there's anyone left in the community that doesn't know you, why don't you tell them what you own?
Woodward Avenue Brewers, the Emery, and the Loving Touch. And we've acquired that property on 8 Mile a few years back, and we're quickly outgrowing that. And I've been looking around for a location within the city limits of Ferndale, obviously, because I live here, I work here, I'm not going to go any farther. And traveling the the Livernois corridor over the years, I saw the growth, I saw the change over there, I've seen the potential, and when I saw the building at the south end, just become available, via the city, I thought that would be a great spot to really anchor the development of the Livernois corridor on that south end and then bring it into the middle. And my vision for that property is a studio / fabrication facility for myself, and then a gallery in the front space that would cater to a wide variety of artists, but mainly like the local artists that don't usually have an opportunity to get into a gallery, because galleries are very selective in who they choose to show, because they really need to sell their pieces at those 40 to 60% commission. So my goal is my intent is to charge a much lower commission, 10 to 20%, so we can get those less known artists in there and sell their work and breathe more life into the artist community around here in Ferndale.
I think needless to say, after talking with council and hearing what the intent was of council, to have a proven family that's been the catalyst for redevelopment on a corridor already in the city walk in and express their interest, it seemed to fall right in line with the council's intent in regards to doing the public good and looking for uses that fit within that new mixed-use theme along the Livernois corridor. With the Hilberry Gallery already there, with some of the innovative adaptive reuse of the old industrial space we've seen, some of the architects' offices and some of the other things, it seemed like a perfect match when we first met with Grant. So as staff, we were excited that he walked into our office and hope this can be a real positive partnership going forward.
And maybe a State of the City address.
I'm feeling it already.
Direct from the gallery.
Right. No, I'm feeling it already. You're right. You talk about the change that's happened there, and there has been some, but potential is probably the bigger opportunity there. We've talked as council that we want to develop the potential of Livernois and into a vibrant mixed-use sort of area, and this is exactly what we had in mind. So I'm glad that it was you in terms of your history of doing good stuff in Ferndale, but we're really excited about the type of use that you're doing there. Just so residents know, we're not putting a restaurant there. We really see this as a vibrant mixed-use strip for Ferndale that can really help put that portion of the city on the map, and glad that we could make this arrangement.
Well, I've driven down Livernois, on a Friday night when the Hilberry Gallery is having an event, and to see all the cars and all the people out and about walking around and taking it all in, it's really nice to see. It's like a second downtown. It's second Main Street, if you will.
Appreciate it. All right. So any other questions or comments before we vote?
just think it was the quickest purchase and quickest sale of government property I've ever
I heard
ever
it's
heard
going to
of.
be closing. Actually sell it.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please? Oh, there hasn't been a
Oh.
motion yet, thank you.
And we don't have
Um,
sell price.
Pardon me?
The motion needs to address the issue
Oh,
of the price.
the issue of the price. So I need a motion on this.
The acquisition cost was, from the county, was what, 67?
$66,611.01. And we figure, we haven't got the final environmental, but we've been insured no more than the 8,200 total. And we are recommending that half be included in the sale price.
So you're going to make us do the math. huh?
So
That's okay.
$70,711.
And 1 cent.
We'll give them a penny write down, so.
Yeah.
I don't have any change.
All right.
You got to make a motion?
Yeah, let's see.
Councilman?
I would move that City Council approve the sale of 320 Livernois to Grant Johnston or an associated entity for $70,711 and direct staff and the city attorney and mayor to finalize and execute the purchase agreement after completing the acquisition from the county.
Support.
Moved by Galloway, supported by Piana. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Piana.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Galloway.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Grant. Good to see you. Item B is a consideration of ordinance number 1130 to amend Chapter 18, Sections 18 through -5 through 18-7, adopting the Michigan Vehicle Code and adopting penalties for violations. Chief, are you going to introduce this item? Oh, I'm sorry, Dan Christensen.
Certainly, Mayor, I'd be happy to introduce it. The proposed ordinance before council this evening would allow for the adoption of what is referred to as the super drunk provisions to the Michigan Vehicle Code, which would allow for enforcement by the city. Currently, the city is limited to enforcing violations that have a potential fine of up to $500 and not more than 93 days in jail. The legislature has amended the provisions of the Home Rule City Act to allow for enforcement of this super drunk provision, which will allow essentially for a charge against a operator of a motor vehicle with a blood alcohol content of 0.17 or more as a first offense, and it has heightened penalties associated with it. Essentially, in discussing the matter with the police department and the chief, it's another additional tool with respect to enforcement that would be available to the officers if council elects to adopt the ordinance.
Very good. Questions of clarification? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I'd move that we adopt ordinance number 1130 to amend Chapter 18 Traffic and Motor Vehicle Code, Article 1 in general, to amend Sections 18-5 to 18-7 to the Ferndale Code of Ordinances.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Lennon. All right, questions, comments on this item?
We're just including a statement of state law, which is already being covered in our ordinances.
But it's not under our ordinance currently. So
Right, we're just,
Yeah.
We're not affecting state law, we're adopting
Exactly.
revised state law.
So that
Obviously, we don't have
so the
ability
local
to-
officers can write it under city ordinance.
That's correct. All right, any other comments or questions? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Lennon.
Yes.
Galloway.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you, that item is adopted. Moving on to regular agenda item C, consideration of ordinance number 1131 to amend Chapter 18, Section 1810, impeding traffic without vehicle moving of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances.
Again, Your Honor, before you this evening is a proposed amendment to Chapter 18 of the city's Code of Ordinances, which would allow for an additional civil infraction charge of impeding traffic where the vehicle is in a moving lane and not moving. It provides for a potential civil infraction fine of up to $500. This was allows for, to the extent council adopts it, for any types of fines or fees assessed in connection with a violation of this to be, a larger percentage would be recovered by the local unit of government rather than going to the state. And this was a suggestion by the district court staff for consideration by council.
I do have some questions.
Sure.
If I may.
Please.
Is this related to the super drunk, or is this just disconnected from that, and we're just amending the vehicle code so that we could include it?
This has no, this is completely separate and distinct from the super drunk legislation.
So if somebody stops on Woodward to let people out of their car in front of a restaurant or something, this would be those
This
types
would be
of issues?
available to the officer
To use?
if it's obstructing traffic. There already is an impeding traffic charge under the Michigan Vehicle Code. This partly would address the allocation of the fines associated with that charge, which would go to the local funding unit, the City of Ferndale, rather than to the state.
Okay.
And also provides, I mean, this is, in some cases, a charge that officers have utilized as a courtesy charge in the past under the Vehicle Code, rather than a charge that would carry points for purposes of the Secretary of State points on a driving record. So this, again, just provides additional flexibility to the officer.
Okay.
Any other questions of clarification? Otherwise, I need a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 1131, amending Chapter 18 to add Section 1810, impeding traffic without vehicle moving.
Support.
Whoa, not sure who. We'll give it to Dan Martin. Moved by Piana, seconded by Martin. Any other questions or comments on this item? Pretty straightforward. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Moving on to regular agenda item D, consideration of ordinance number 1132 to amend Chapter 18, Section 1811, reading, typing, or sending of text messages on wireless two-way communications of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances.
Again, Your Honor, if I may,
Please.
this proposed ordinance would provide for a prohibition of utilizing, typing, sending, or receiving text messages while operating a motor vehicle within the city of Ferndale. And it is a safety issue. A number of communities have adopted this type of prohibition that would not allow for texting while operating the motor vehicle on the traffic. And again, this is for your consideration. It is drafted as a civil infraction.
How does this relate to current state law?
It is, this actually is not a state law. This is an issue that a number of municipalities have adopted, and it is one that a number of municipalities and law enforcement individuals and prosecutors believe is a safety issue with respect to people trying to operate a vehicle while engaged in other activities like texting.
But it does distinguish between this and a two-way communication device and a Garmin, for example, that's a navigation device.
That's right. That would not be a violation.
Okay, so we would be adapting our own distracted driving ordinance, which is what just during my research, because I had to research what Michigan does. I know the super drunk passed, and they're sort of connecting on the distracted driving stuff too in some manner. So
I do believe Troy has this, am I correct, Dan?
Southfield, I believe, has it.
I mean, this could be written under, as the chief well knows, we can write it under careless, we can write it under failing a vehicle under control, but it's very distinct to the way Dan has drafted the ordinance.
You're right, Councilman. I mean, to the extent that there was other elements of another charge, it perhaps could be considered careless. But this, careless normally is some evidence of poor actual operation of the motor vehicle.
Whereas this would not require evidence of
swerving necessarily.
swerving.
But it would require evidence that the individual is engaged in that texting while operating the motor vehicle on the lane of travel.
How do you know if someone's texting versus dialing a number or doing something else on a device?
Or, putting a new song on your iPod.
It doesn't matter.
And are those things also banned in this?
Well, no, the phone operation would not be.
Phone operation would not.
Would not be. I mean, that would be an evidentiary issue for the officer, but it would allow for an officer to make a stop to inquire about the issue.
Through the chair, I have a question. I noticing on the Michigan State Police website that it's deep in there. I Googled it. But it says that Michigan law prohibits drivers from reading, manual typing, or sending a text message while driving. So there is current law in the books disallowing
maybe
it.
they did pass it. They hadn't
So,
when this was
but-
originally drafted.
There is a state law that this mirrors almost
Okay.
word for word.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so it already does exist. We would just be putting it back into our code of.
That's right.
Into our ordinance to formally adopt it, to give more flexibility to it.
It also, as the city attorney has stated in the past, this also becomes a local issue, and that some of the funding can come back to the local unit of government. But our ordinance is substantially similar to the state law on this.
Do we have any violations against state law that you've written or stopped people for?
It is a preventative ordinance and law, and but it is one that you're under the state law, you're prohibited from requiring a driver to show you his phone so you can prove it. So the proofs are somewhat difficult. The officer would actually have to observe them texting on their phone and see the maneuvers that would be associated with texting, because it does not prohibit the use of a phone, and many times smartphones are being utilized very similar to texting. So the proofs on it it's not a slam dunk. You actually have to make some very good observations as a police officer before you could prosecute. But it is something that brings forward to the public to know that we'll be looking for this, and that it is a very dangerous thing to do while you're driving, is to text or to read texts.
And then
I never do it.
And then through the
Lying, I do it all.
through the chair, and then I have another question, and maybe it's once the motion is made, maybe we can answer it. But do we need to have some sort of supplemental awareness campaign that we're doing this, even though it's already state law? I don't know. I've looked at during my research, I see that other cities are informing people that it will now be more attentive to use those. I don't know.
But we need a motion.
It's not
first.
necessary, but.
Yep. So unless there's questions of clarification, a motion would be in order.
I move that we approve the ordinance number 1132, amending Chapter 18 to Section 18-11, reading, typing, or sending a text message on a wireless two-way communication.
Support.
And moved by Martin and supported by Piana. Okay. Further discussion, ideas, questions, etc.
I'd just like to second what Councilwoman Piana said. I think a press release and some awareness would be good around this. Because even though it is currently state law, I would argue that it's widely done. So this is a good opportunity to educate and hopefully cut down on the use of this.
Anything else? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Moving on to regular agenda item E, consideration of ordinance number 1133 to amend Chapter 18, Section 18 through 12, parking enforcement in private parking lots of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances.
If I may, Your Honor,
Yes.
this also would amend and add an additional section to Chapter 18 of the Ferndale's Code of Ordinances to allow for enforcement in private parking lots of provisions of the Michigan Vehicle Code and Uniform Traffic Code, where an owner of the particular property has requested such enforcement and would allow for the officers to enforce the traffic code in private parking lots. That's what this provision would provide for.
Thank you. Questions of clarification or motion?
I don't know, this may sound like a dumb question, but I'm throwing it out there. Are they exempt now?
Yeah.
Really? They're like islands getaway free card zones?
Well, getaway free.
Well, not getaway, you know what I mean, you just...
Chief,
Can you explain this, what this means? Because it might come up for private property owners?
There are only a couple instances where we have authority to enforce traffic code on private property. Drunk driving, careless driving, reckless driving, handicap parking.
Okay.
Other than that, private parking, if you own a parking lot and individuals, and it's not signed properly, and you just, after hours, you want to go park in somebody else's parking lot, it's not chained off, there's nothing that the police really can do other than tow the vehicle at the request of the owner, and that's a labor-intensive, time-consuming type thing. If these lots are signed properly, that means that the property owner cares, and they would prefer that people don't park in their lot. If it's signed properly, they call us. We have the option of issuing a citation instead of towing the vehicle. It gives us another option to assist a business owner that has people incurring or encroaching upon their parking lots, either after hours, actually during business hours.
Would you only do it at the invitation of a business owner, or would you be patrolling,
Well, other than handicap parking,
Yeah.
we would not be going into private parking lots to cite anybody, because it would have to be, how would we know that that individual is there? They would actually have to call us. This is an assistance to and at the request of several of the business owners in the downtown area that have been experiencing folks parking in their lots after hours.
Is the post office a private lot?
I would say that they would have to have their parking lot signed for us to, and I believe it is, if I'm not mistaken.
And I've never done that either.
And I believe they've called us before.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions of clarification? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I move to approve ordinance number 1133, amending Chapter 18 to add Section 1812, traffic regulations on private parking lots.
Second.
Moved by Piana, seconded by Martin. Any other questions or comments on this item? Sounds like a common sense idea. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Piana,
Yes.
Lennon,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Now, moving on to what was formerly consent agenda item B, and Councilman Galloway, you pulled that item.
Yeah, this is the, I guess, a statement of council regarding investment of employee post employment benefits or monies for OPEB. And I just wanted to get a better understanding of why we're doing this now and how it changes, if at all, from the previously adopted investment strategy from 2001. In my read from it, it seems to be a bit more aggressive investment policy rather than what we adopted in 12 years ago. Is that in fact the case?
Unfortunately, Jean Marie's on vacation this week, and I didn't realize that when we put it on the agenda. So I can offer limited information on this. It's just that it was a cursory review of the investment policy, allowed for a wider range of options for investment. But as it comes to detailed on aggression or anything of that nature, we would probably have to table that. She'll be back in time for the August 27th meeting. And Shailen, I don't think that there is we're up against any wall on that at all.
Not that I'm
So
aware of.
I apologize. I didn't think to look at that particular instance that she's on vacation. So I don't think I'm appropriate to answer some of those deeper
Who drafted
questions.
this? Did George Vita draft this, or how did we come up with this?
Jean Marie, as well with some assistance in that capacity as well.
And just
so.
in 2000, I mean, having served on the Police and Fire Pension Board, I know those guys are really concerned about, you know, the money being there when they retire. The 2001 policy had as its objectives, as you know, safety of the principal is the foremost objective. And in the adopted policy, the asset mix is 60% equities and 40% fixed income. And then it goes on to describe some overall long-term investment goals to achieve an annualized total return through appreciation and income greater than, you know, so it just talks more about maximizing returns in the new policy, whereas in the old policy, it was more about safety and liquidity. So I'm not sure that that's a bad goal, but I just wondered where this came from and if it was done with the input of the employee pension boards or the unions or how we got to this point. And then I'm just also curious as to how this affects our actual investment decisions. And then finally here in the, let's see, I'm sorry.
On that point, though, the pension boards themselves would still be able to operate within these. So if they adopted a more conservative posture, they could still do that within these
This
guidelines?
doesn't govern the pension board. This governs the healthcare.
Oh, just the...
Yeah, this is just the healthcare part of things.
That's right.
But I would add on to Councilman Galloway's comments too, especially as you go through it, I'd be interested to know where a lot of this came from because of the cash equivalent asset class value. The max is already below what even, for example, on the pension board keeps in cash. So it does seem, you know, more aggressive than a lot of our other investment strategies.
I guess that there is no hurry for this, so I would suggest that we table it so we can have a much cleaner conversation with Jane Marie available. And I'll also take note of some of the concerns and questions that council has, so she's prepared to answer those.
And
I
guess what
apologize.
I'd be looking for is just how we develop this. I mean, we have the memo, which gives a very high-level overview, the proposed revisions to the policy, the old policy, the state law that it's based upon, and then not too much else. Some minutes from a meeting, you know, several years ago. So I'd just like to have a better understanding how this was developed.
Absolutely. Will do.
So I would move that we table this for until the first regularly scheduled meeting in September.
Yeah, we're August 27th.
Oh,
Yeah.
We have one at that
the last
27th,
one,
yeah.
and, you know.
Yeah, 27.
Again, I apologize.
That's fine. Motion to table, does that require a second? Yeah. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion on that motion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Piana,
Yes.
Lennon,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is tabled, excuse me. Finally, our last regular agenda item is formerly consent agenda item E, the consideration for a special event permit for electronic dance music Ferndale, and Councilwoman Piana, you asked to have that removed.
Yeah, I would like some clarification about what this event is because I felt like that application confused a couple of things. And let me state what those are first. I was also wondering why the committee recommends the enforcement of the noise ordinance as opposed to overriding it with all of other events. And so here's where my confusion is. We usually do applications for outdoor events, and this event says it's for 150 people. When I scroll down and read about what it is, it's really an outdoor patio event up to 70 people, depending on the outdoor seating and whatnot. So I think what really is happening is it's an event downstairs in your business, and then you're having a backdoor patio where up to 70 people could be. And then I didn't see anywhere if you were putting music outside because it's a lot of electronic dance music Ferndale, so I didn't know if there was going to be music outside. And if so, does it go till 2 a.m. outside and inside, or is it just till when the enforcement of the ordinance goes? Is that 11? Right? Is it 11 when? So that's why I'm confused.
And I think we have the owner.
Yes, thank you for
here
coming.
this evening,
I appreciate
as well
you
as Michael
clarifying.
Larry representing maybe the Special Events Committee. So you want to sort of.
And there's multiple dates.
Lots of dates. So give us an overview of what you got going on.
All right. There'll be no music outside.
Okay.
So there's no noise outside. So therefore, there's no issue with that. The reason it has two capacities, 150, 70. My capacity downstairs is 94. And for these events, well, let me back up for a second. The thing that makes every bar in Ferndale special is their niche. You know, we've got breweries, distilleries, nightclubs, everything under the sun. When it comes to me, what makes me special is electronic music. On these dates, we're flying in artists from Russia, Chicago, UK. I mean, they're international artists that play ginormous venues, but they're playing here in Ferndale. And there's a group called Pax How that does the Detroit Electronic Music Festival. And they used to be based in Ferndale, now moved out of Ferndale. They were asking, why are you bringing these artists to Ferndale versus giving us a shot in Detroit where we have more space? I'm like, this is my niche. This is what I do. So it's a way for us to show what we do. Also, I'm taking a somewhat dead space, as someone said earlier, breathing life into it. The alley behind my building is not the prettiest around. So we're going to intend on, lighting, decor, design, making it a pedestrian-friendly space, enforced with everything that fire, police, DPW, anyone wants to have us do, we'll take care of. So that's what it does for us. It just gives us a place for us to show what we are and show that our niche is here in Ferndale. This is what we do.
Okay. So you're asking for a repeat.
We're asking for a repeat because these dates are dates that we have major artists in town, and that's why we're asking for repeat dates instead of just doing one event, because I don't have the room for just one event.
Right. Okay.
What would the alley look like? I mean, just give us.
It'll be a mix of all of the favorite alleys around here. It'll be a mix of Dino's behind his space. We gave the CDA copies of what it's going to look like, but
you have a map here, but
yeah,
pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty much tables, umbrellas, string lighting, some wall splashing. We're intending on having Matt Black from Signature Tattoo, or Avatar Tattoo, have an 8-foot canvas outside doing an artistic piece of a grasshopper while the event's going on, kind of just to showcase, something else, something cool, something fun.
This was discussed heavily at the DDA meeting on Thursday, looking at an opportunity to see how this goes, then there might be some potential for some permanent adjustments to that alley. But we wanted to see how things go, how things flow, and things of that nature, and these special events will help lead that way of seeing what some options are with that back alley on Troy. So.
I encourage the DDA to contact all the tenants in that building, because that is the only way to do loading and unloading, and since there's no elevator to get up to the second floor.
Yep, and that part of the conversation came up as well. So, as well as some other concerns that both chiefs had as relates to safety and accessibility, all of those things combined. It was a very good conversation on some potential for that alley.
Okay, and also it says you want an outdoor patio to socialize and to consume food and beverage, and then the last sentence says no food or drink, including alcohol beverages, shall be sold outside. So they're allowed to consume food outside that they bring in, or
the limits of the building, but we can't have a bar outside.
Okay, so they can buy what they
can buy what they want and take it outside,
okay,
which is escorted by a security member and a waitstaff. But you can't come out. I can't roll a bar outside and sell booze in the back. That way.
So if they're escorted by a waitstaff, does the smoking ban apply, or can they smoke out there?
Within the limits, within the limits and the boundaries of that liquor commission granted space, there's no smoking allowed.
But we will have a space dedicated just for that.
Right, gotcha.
Thanks, Troy.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of Troy or of Larry or on this item? A motion would be in order.
I move to approve the special event permit for the electronic dance music Ferndale on the following dates: September 15th and 29th, October 13th and 27th, November 10th and 21st, 2012, for a temporary outside patio in the alleyway behind the Grasshopper Pub between East 9 Mile and East Troy Street, as detailed in the Special Events Committee minutes and with the consensus of the Special Events Committee, with all of the following contingencies.
Support? Moved by Councilwoman Piana, supported by Councilman Galloway. Any other discussions, questions on this item? Yes? Very well.
Oh, sorry.
Is electronic dance music the name of the company?
It's a genre of music.
Okay. Is or isn't going to be music outside in that
There's
alley?
no music in the alley.
No music. Okay. So all we're going to hear from the Grasshopper is what we normally hear about 300 feet away going across Woodward when we're coming after council meetings and any other time. That boom, boom, boom.
Sure.
Okay.
Michael Larry.
Hi. Just to answer your one question about the noise ordinance, understanding that right next door is the Orchid, which they have their brand new outside patio, but the noise ordinance is enforced on them, being an establishment, so we felt that it was only fair that being right next to it, they should also have to apply to that same ordinance.
Battle of the bands.
Battle of the
Blue
Beats.
Line will have subwoofers.
Battle of the Beats, yeah. All right. Any other questions of council? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our regular agenda this evening, and the next item is call to council. Police Chief, anything for the good of the city this evening?
Nothing further, Your Honor. We do want to welcome everybody to the city for the Dream Cruise, so please be careful, please be cautious, and please drive carefully. We have a very good record, and we don't want to break that record at all.
Amen.
Hope everybody has a good time.
Great. The fire chief was here, but I think he's left. Oh, there he is. Fire Chief Sullivan, anything for the good of the city this evening?
Just one thing, Your Honor, as we're approaching the Dream Cruise, the fire department's preparing as they have for the last 17 years, except this year we're adding the CERT team, so we will be deploying them for their first formal deployment, and not for an emergency, but to help us out in assessing situations and being around in case people need help in that. So that's the only thing I have to say.
Great.
Have a good one.
Very good. Derek, anything else from the Department of Community and Economic Development this evening?
One quick update. I know quite a while ago, Council approved staff to move forward with the sale of 803 Breckenridge to Allied Printing. Just wanted to let everybody know it's taken a little while. City Attorney Christ and the attorney for Allied have been working on a purchase agreement that's mutually agreeable to both sides. We're very close. It was just a matter of some discussion over the first right of refusal if they decide not to use it within a certain amount of time. But I imagine that's very close, and we'll be bringing that back shortly. So I just wanted to let you know.
Appreciate it. City Clerk, anything from your area of the world this evening?
Certainly, just pleased to announce that we had 23.79% turnout at the election on Tuesday. That is the highest for an August primary, going back to 2006 when we started keeping electronic records. I want to give a big thanks to all of my precinct inspectors. I had people on call acting as runners. I had people at City Hall that night. Everyone did a great job for us. It's a long day for our workers. They had to deal with long lines, and in many cases they had to deal with hostile voters, which was disappointing, but I think they did a good job in dealing with it, and all I would ask is that our voters be conscious of the fact that our inspectors are doing a job that's mandated by state law, and they're doing it well, and it doesn't always happen quickly, but it happens accurately. We are refining some ideas for quicker processing in a couple of the precincts where lines did get backed up. So we will add additional workers at one. I think we're going to move to a larger room at the Kulik Center where there's just a better setup and a better flow. And just want to announce that tomorrow at 4 p.m. is the deadline to file as a candidate for the school districts, the school boards, and you file at the county. So we're already off and running for November.
I had a question.
Sure.
Yes. There was some discussion, or I'm not sure, some controversy regarding the checkoff box for the U.S. citizenship.
Correct.
Could you tell voters what that was all about and why it didn't apply for the municipal election?
July 3rd, Governor Schneider vetoed a bill that would have made it mandatory for voters to check yes or no to the citizenship question when applying for a ballot. For the February election, the Secretary of State had ordered the applications to vote with that question on it, and we were instructed to enforce that question in February. Then in July, because the bill was vetoed, we were instructed not to enforce it, but apparently there was some clarification issues. Not all clerks got the message. I think the media got involved, and a couple of partisan politicians got things stirred up. In Ferndale, it was a non-issue. Nobody was turned away from voting because they refused to answer the question.
So the Secretary of State decided to implement a law before it became law? She ordered the things to... Oh, that's interesting.
Imagine that. Thank you. Anything else?
No.
All right. City Manager, anything from your area this evening?
Sure. I think a lot of the things that are going on, staff talked about today, but we're just very excited about moving forward with our website. And any time if you have any questions about process, we thought this was the best opportunity to segue in as we move forward of where we're going. So if there are any concerns that council has or anything that Joe presented that causes you concern, you have more questions about, please feel free to contact us because we'll be moving forward in that direction. The other thing I wanted to mention is that over the last 6 or 7 months, Polar Environmental has been working with the MDEQ to look at some provisions for their permit. Before they're able to be able to secure their permit, they have to go through a series of a process that will require them to work more with MDEQ, stricter guidelines, things of that nature. At the end of that process, they're required to have a public commenting period of 30 days, and that's going to be starting in the next probably in the next week. There'll be 30 days that people will have an opportunity to comment in writing in different vehicles to be able to talk about their concerns, and we'll end that 30 days with an actual public comment where they can come in and speak, and we will ensure that that is, and have been told that normally that's held in Lansing, but because there are so many concerns in the Ferndale area, they're going to actually provide that public comment period in Ferndale. I'm working right now with MDQ to come up with a location and a date for that. So as soon as we have that information where they can provide public comment as well as to be able to come and talk about that in public, we will make sure that that is noticed and that everybody has that opportunity to speak their concerns as it relates to Polar Environmental. So please see something. You'll be seeing something from me probably toward the end of the week on that, if not at the beginning of next week. So with that, we have Dream Cruise this week, and we are moving forward with summer. So that's what we have.
Thank you. Dan, Chris, anything
Nothing
from
tonight,
the attorney's things? Councilman Martin.
Just a couple things. Looking forward to Dream Cruise, and congratulations again to our clerk and her team. I thought you guys did a great job. I would love to see as well in November, if we could, just to continue either here or on the website to re-educate the new voting precincts. You know, people don't always read what we mail them, unfortunately.
No. Absolutely.
And lastly, speaking of our pension boards, about 2 weeks ago we had a joint meeting of the Police and Fire Pension Board as well as the City Employees Pension Board to take a look at changing the fund that manages our international equities. We interviewed 3 different fund managers, and later this week we're meeting to, and as individual boards, to make a decision if we want to change the fund management for our international equities in those funds. And that's not that the current one has been a poor performer, but the volatility of the fund has led us to take a look at what else is out there, and again, taking a conservative eye to how we manage those funds. So I just wanted to update council on that. That's it.
Great, thank you. Councilman Martin. I'm sorry, Councilman Lennon. Yeah.
You're having a bad day, Mayor. I'm going to have to pass on some information. On June 26th of this year, Ferndale resident Matt Leach perished in Afghanistan. And Ferndale Legion has merged with the Berkeley American Legion. And what they're going to have is they'll have a jug available at the Elks Club during the Dream Cruise to collect money. So you can donate money in Matt's name, and you can also buy a wrist bracelet. Proceeds from this, along with other fundraising efforts, will be used to build a Soldiers Battle Cross Monument somewhere in the spring of 2013 at the Berkeley Legion. However, there are many, many Ferndale residents that belong to the Berkeley Legion because of ours close. So I just want to pass that along. There will be canisters outside the Ferndale Elks. That says outside here, but that's probably not a good idea. So I assume they'll be inside. So we visit the Ferndale Elks, so you do something good in one of our residents' names that perished in Afghanistan, okay? And we'll see everybody Friday at 5.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Piana.
Yeah, I wanted to give an update on the Woodward alternative analysis. I haven't mentioned too many things in the last couple of months. That's because we were forming the steering committee and signing contracts. SEMCOG is the project manager for the Woodward alternative analysis. So the city's applied for the grant, they got the money, and now SEMCOG's managing this on behalf of the cities between Detroit and Pontiac. And I wanted to officially say that this project has kicked off, that the steering committee is formed, and Derek and I are representing the city of Ferndale on the steering committee. And in the next 90 days or so, we'll be coming out with a more firm schedule of the public outreach that's going to happen in the next 12 to 15 months, because this project has a significant outreach component. And then I wanted to say that that the public meeting will be all about introducing the project scope of the alternative, that the purpose and need for mass transit along the corridor, and gather feedback on the project approach. So very heavily, a lot of involvement is going to be put out there, or requested, and a lot of information will be put out there about the what is called the locally preferred alternative, and it is the type of mode that will be studied at length along the corridor. So that is underway. We'll have more updates probably on a monthly basis as things start to unfold. But I also wanted to invite people to the M1, what they're calling the M1 rail is now called M1 streetcar, apparently, and that there's an open house public involvement kickoff meeting on August 21st from 3 to 7 p.m. at the MSU Detroit Center. And I think if you are interested in learning about what's happening on the 3-mile version down in Detroit, you'll get a very good exposure to what public outreach is going to look like for the city's past 8-mile all the way from Ferndale up to Pontiac. So I'm really excited and that we're finally getting going. I also wanted to say that we are doing as much possible coordination with the other investment projects currently underway on the corridor. So the Woodward Avenue Action Association received $750,000 to create a complete streets master plan, and that steering committee is comprised of a lot of the same people who are making up the steering committee for the alternative analysis, and that these two things are going to be done in parallel, and both of them have public engagement requirements, and we're trying to coordinate them at the
coordinate them where possible. So overall, we have almost $3 million coming to help us figure out how to do mass transit on Woodward to bring this type of investment to the businesses here. So, and none of it is through tax-funded dollars. And I think that's pretty amazing that we're finally making some progress. So really excited about where we are and actually making some movement. So
wonderful.
That's it.
Great. Councilman Galloway.
Just shortly, I participated in the Green Cruise along with some other folks, of course, in the city. I thought it was a great event. It seemed like at least the bike riding aspect of it was as many or more people than have attended in years past. It went smoothly. And just so folks who ride their bikes know, we're getting bike paths on Livernois next spring. So slowly expanding our bike infrastructure out.
Yeah.
South Livernois, south of 9th. And that's it.
Great. Just a couple of quick things. Number one, speaking of the election, I want to congratulate our own Dan Christ, who was one of the top 2 vote getters in the circuit court race. So Dan will be on the ballot in November. Congratulations, Dan. And secondly, there was a tragedy today at the Texas A&M University where a gunman killed a police officer and wounded 3 other police officers, and it really struck home for me because I had the privilege last Friday night of doing a ride-along with one of our officers, and it just it was a great experience. Chief, thanks for setting that up for me, and it really gives you a great perspective seeing it from the side of the folks who have to serve and protect us on a daily basis. And I can assure the residents that we're in good hands, and Godspeed to them, because the most innocent things can turn dangerous quickly with bad guys. And we got great folks working in our department. It was a privilege to get to ride along with them, and all the best to the Forest Chief. So thanks for letting me do that. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.